Today I have special guest author Mia Godfrey, and today we're talking about how she didn't used to believe in therapy, but it actually ended up saving her life. As Christians, so many times we all want that miraculous, instantaneous healing from God, but so often He has us on a journey to healing. Sometimes that requires the experience of professionals. So if you've been on the fence thinking, I'm not sure if therapy is right for me, or maybe it's not the right move for Christians at all, this episode is for you.
Stress,
Thanks.
tension, a racing mind. What if a few minutes could reset your nervous system? Biblical breathwork, scripture, worship, and nervous system science to restore your peace. Feel your tension release. Your mind grow still. Wake up rested. Start your day from a place of calm. Feel God's peace and presence. Get your copy of Biblical Breathwork today. Every purchase gifts an album to a woman in a domestic violence shelter, because God's peace is for every woman. Inhale God's peace and imagine real freedom from anxiety and stress, because life is lighter on the other side.
Welcome to the Room to Bloom podcast, equipping you to live redefined, renewed, and restored. I'm your host, Julie Rebboah. Let's tackle this week's topic. Thanks for joining us, Mia. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much, Julie, for having me.
Well, thanks for being here for this important conversation. So, would you tell us a little bit more about you?
So, yes, I'm an author, and March was my first book release. I'm a Bible counselor. I'm an EME practitioner and life coach, and I've been here in the United States for 17 years.
Well, even you coming to the United States was quite a journey. Could you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yes, so I am the youngest of 10 children, and I grew up in Romania under the communist regime. I have 6 brothers, and I have 3 sisters. And I came to the United States in 2008 when I met my late husband.
Okay. And so let's begin with your childhood. What was that like growing up in Romania? And how does this relate to your story in the book that you've written?
When I ask people what they know about Romania, a lot of people, they just talk about Nadia Comaneci was one of the best gymnasts in the world. But what people don't know, what it meant to grow up under the communist regime. So as a child, I remember even as a 5-year-old, we used to stay in really long lines just to get bread. My mom used to get us up at 5 a.m. and we used to sit in long lines. And the baker, I remember like it was yesterday, the smell of the bread, and the baker was always have flour on his face and his hands, and he signed my mom's card. My mom had a card and he had to sign it every single morning. That means we took home the food that we were allowed to, which at that time it was 6-inch piece of bread per person, and we were 12. We're 10 kids and the parents, and that was never ever enough food for the entire day. So as a child, we were exposed to hunger at a very early age and abuse. And the abuse was not just at school from bullying from other children, was also from the teachers. And then we used to come home and you will think, at home you can have a sanctuary where you could feel safe. Well, my father was battling alcohol addiction, which at the time I did not know what that was. I love my father with all my heart, but I've seen often him hitting my mom or hitting my brothers. It was constant. That addiction took over him. That it was constant abuse in our house, in our household.
So it sounds like there was really no escape from childhood trauma when you were growing up. You faced it in your community with the lack of food and resources, and then You faced it from the other students, and then your teachers were very harsh. And then you went home and you witnessed domestic violence and experienced some physical abuse. And so, how did this affect you as you were growing up?
Well, I've learned that a woman's role is just to stay home, have kids, and it's okay if you are in a domestic violence situation because women were seen as lesser than. Even I remember when we were in school, our hair was cut extremely short, and um, it was not a fashion trend. It was simply to control us.
Mm,
And by keeping our hair short, like if we had long hair, it was a sign of rebellion.
mm,
And our teachers made sure that our hair until I was 14, it was cut short. So growing up under that as a woman, as a girl, I was lesser than. I grew up being terrified to speak with male figures. I left home when I was 18 after my father passed. And here I was as an adult, and I was afraid to have a conversation with the male figure. And I also gravitated towards very physical, abusive relationships. I was engaged twice, and both at the time, only through God's grace, I was able to make it through it. They were extremely abusive physically. And I thought, well, a woman's role is to love their husband 100% and not expect anything in return. And it was something that was the only thing I knew. I didn't know it was another option for me.
mm. So it sounds like independent choices, having agency was stripped from you culturally by the government. And then also culturally, women were seen as less than. And so it sounds like domestic violence was very common in your culture.
Yes. So alcohol consumption, it was something seen as normal, but more for males. Like the first time I was given the alcohol, I was 7. And then by 13 in the evenings, I was drinking to fall asleep. But it was in every household I knew moonshine was on the shelf for everybody to have access for consumption anytime they want to. So it was a
So,
combination of alcohol abuse and domestic violence that it was part of the norm.
so it sounds like someone gave you the alcohol at the age of 7. Is that correct?
Yes. So because everything was so restricted, it was never enough. So he built a secret room in the back of our house with very, very thick walls. And that's where he did a moonshine distillery, which was not legal at the time. And he was selling some, drinking some, but he was very freely showing us the process, how to make the moonshine. And of course, we start tasting it very early on. It was part of a daily routine if you choose to have it.
And so, how did that exposure to alcohol begin to affect you?
I remember one time I was 13 years old and I witnessed something horrific at school. I got home and I went to my father's stash and I drank some alcohol and I pretty much passed out. Later in the middle of the night, I heard some noise and I got up and I saw my father hitting my mother, blaming her for drinking his alcohol. Well, right then it hit me and I realized it was me. It was not my mom. And my mom was just trying to protect us. And I remember she fell on the floor and she looked at me and she just motioned me to walk away. And I did. I went in the bed and I started crying and I told my sister Mona, I said, I am a fraud. I said, Mom is getting beat because of me. I'm the one who drank the alcohol. Well, I was 13 years old. And it took me until I was mid 30s to have the courage to tell my mom that that was me and I was the one drinking the alcohol. And that really, really messed me in a way where you will think it will give me the motivation not to drink. But instead, I start drinking more because I said, if I can just numb the pain and I go to bed early, then that's a solution. Well, fast forward until I was 18 years old and my father passed. I was sitting by my father's grave and I saw my mom in a very meek posture crying. All my siblings are crying. And I was not, because what a lot of them didn't know, and I wasn't, because I stole some pills, antidepressants, and I mixed them with alcohol. And I was just sitting by that grave. I was numb. And right then it hit me, and I said, I can't stay home because I feel like I'm bringing so much shame to my family if I stay. And I was the youngest of 10, and everybody had so many dreams for me and so many goals. And Mia's going to do this and Mia's going to do that. When the only thing I was thinking was drinking myself until I pass out. So I decided right there by my father's grave that I need to leave home. And I was 18 years old when I said goodbye to my siblings and my mom. And I left 300 miles away and I got a job to clean rich people's homes because I felt like if I'm far away from my family and they're not going to know, then I cannot hurt them. So that's how I coped. The first time I experienced grief, I turned to more alcohol and more pills because that's the only thing I knew at that time.
So there is often so much grief that people don't realize is associated with childhood trauma. When did you realize that grief was at the root of all those big feelings?
Not until 2023.
Hmm.
In 2015, I also lost my first husband. He was 42 years old. And once again, I did not know how to reach out. I did not know how to find a community to help me. But I also knew by this time I was sober over 10 years, and I knew alcohol wouldn't be an option for me. So what I did instead, I took 3 jobs. I used to get up at 5:30 a.m. and got my first job, then the second job, and then come home past 11 o'clock. I was so exhausted that I used to just, and I didn't know at the time that overworking, it's an addiction also. So I replaced that for that. So at this point, I still did not know. I consider myself a happy kid with an amazing childhood, because those were the stories that I was telling myself. How, have that love from my siblings. I consider myself blessed. Well, in 2023, my sister, the one that I was the closest to, got diagnosed with ovarian cancer. I traveled back and forth to Montana to be her caretaker. I'm currently in Knoxville, Tennessee. I had to fly to Montana and be there with her for 11 months. And during that time, she encouraged me to start writing parts of our stories. And after the 11 months, when she passed out in November of 23, I came home. And I remember I broke down and I told my husband, I'm done. I'm done. I love you with all my heart. My current husband, we got married in 2020. I said, I have no purpose in this world. It's too much pain. And I don't want to move on. I can't move on. So to this point, you have to understand that I did not believe in therapy, and I thought it was a waste of time. But my husband said, "Would you please, just go at least one session?" So I went just because I love him and I love our children. And I remember I was sitting across from my therapist. Her name was Beth, and she had a teal bookshelf. And instead of looking at her, I was looking at that teal bookshelf, and I was like, such a waste of time. Here's an hour of my life that I will never, ever get back. And the question she asked slowly helped me let my guard down. And I have so many stories where she helped me, how she helped me found my purpose. But that's when I first discovered therapy in 2023.
So it sounds like for a while you were replacing your alcohol addiction with overworking, and overworking is also avoidance to some extent.
Yes.
Like we're trying to not think about things, not feel
Yes.
things. And so we just stay very, very busy. So if you are listening to this and you're thinking, oh my goodness, yes, I overwork as well, that might be why. But I want to backtrack and ask you, why did you believe that therapy was a waste of time? Where did that belief come from?
I'll say it had a lot to do with the culture, how I grew up. And it had a lot to do with my family culture as well, because we're always told that if you have any problems, you take them to God and nobody else. And we're always told, like, you don't let anybody else see your dirty dishes. You take care of in the family. So even as a child, one of the stories in the book I talked about where I did something and my brothers came and rescued me and they said, don't ever, ever trust anybody outside this home. So those
Mm,
were words that they were constantly said to me as a child, not in a necessarily a bad way, but it was everything you keep in the family and you only trust the family. And the only person to that point that knew my deepest secret, it was my sister Mona. And I think that's why I broke completely, because I felt like I have nobody in the world that will truly understand my pain until I found that.
mm. So it sounds like your family culture and then the Romanian culture
Yes,
was not safe. And so you
yes,
didn't speak of that. Was there also a church culture that also said, you don't need therapy, you just need
yes,
Jesus?
yes,
Okay.
yes, absolutely. We had elders of the church, and it was an extremely, extremely strict compared with some other churches I've been to. It was extremely, extremely strict, and we had to wear hair cover and long dresses, and that's all I knew. And then when I stepped outside of that circle, I realized I'm absolutely a fraud. And I consider myself a fraud for many years, because here I was still trying to go to church on Sunday, still put a smile on my face, smiling at everybody, talking to everybody, trying to encourage everybody. And as soon as I walk out those doors, especially in the evenings, I just drown my sorrows in alcohol. That's all I knew. That's all I
Uh-huh.
knew, because that's all I saw my father doing at the time.
Well, and that makes sense. And so it sounds like there was also some shame. Even though you believed in God, it sounds like there was shame involved with your use of alcohol. And so you mentioned that the passing of your sister was really the catalyst, that you were in such a dark place that you went to that one therapy session that you promised your husband that you would go to. So, for anyone out there who is feeling that resistance, like therapy's not for me, I can get through this, but still they're struggling with symptoms of PTSD like sleeplessness and
Mm.
night terrors and substance abuse, what would you say to encourage them to give it a try?
I'll say that what helped me the most was my therapist's ability to ask the right question and see through my pain. And I say nothing is nothing wrong with finding help in a church or finding a community, but not everybody has the proper training to ask the right question and get to the root of the problem. I worshiped my father, and it took me months of therapy to realize that that was an image that I made up because I loved my family and I loved my father. But it's okay to name it like it is. Yes, he struggled. He had his own demons to fight. And God equips people, equip therapists with the wisdom, and he gives them the wisdom to actually know how to ask those questions. And maybe you say, well, I have my husband, or I have my siblings, or I have my spouse, my partner. I can talk to them, and that's okay. But I realized I was putting a burden on somebody who also didn't have the emotional capacity to deal with the trauma that I was going into, because it finally made sense. I'm 45 years old and I was 42 and I finally realized that all the nightmares and night terrors, there was a reason behind it. I did not know that at the time. I just thought, oh, maybe I ate something I was not supposed to. I always thought that onion, garlic, or steak made me have the nightmares or night terrors. But with Beth's help, I've learned that it was a lot of childhood trauma that I tried to suppress those memories. And they were coming, but I just couldn't remember what it was. And with her help and her techniques, I was able to slowly start remembering that I went through some deep traumas and it's okay to call it as it is and try to seek help.
Would you mind sharing with us what are some of the therapies that you used to deal with some of these deep traumas? Because they're not all equally helpful for people who've experienced deep childhood wounds.
And it's not one size fits all. So you have
Mm-hmm.
to find what works for you. For me, the healing process started with journaling, which eventually turned into a book. And then EMDR is what worked for me. And I will forever be grateful because through that treatment, I was able to really remember where those nightmares are coming from. I remember where the night terrors are coming from. Not everything, and I'm still working through it, but bits and pieces enough to realize that I truly needed help. And I didn't know that PTSD was a thing that I could be diagnosed with. I always thought PTSD was associated only with people who served in army or police officer. That's what I associated with. I didn't know that everyday people can actually be diagnosed with something like that. But then everything started coming together and it made sense the way I was acting.
Could you tell us a little bit more about EMDR for people who haven't experienced it and how it can put a little bit of distance between painful memories and your emotions? Because I know so many people are afraid of opening up a very painful box when they
Mhm.
start something like therapy.
So that was one of the things that my therapist said. It's a possibility to open Pandora box. It's a possibility for you to remember things from your childhood, memories that you suppressed. But if you want to find healing, this could be one option. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. It was simply like everything it has to do with eye movement, and I do those exercises to help slow my heart rate. So if I have a bad dream or nightmare, I used to wake up and I used to shake and I couldn't breathe and my heart was beating out of my chest. And it's like I could smell blood and taste it. And I was like, what is wrong with me? Well, she told me one exercise was to put my hands across my chest
The
and just,
butterfly.
yes, and get up as of the past. It's not the present. This is of the past. I realized just by doing something so simple, I was able to slow my heart rate. And I was like, okay. And then get a journal, try to write down some things. And by doing that, now it's been months that I didn't wake up and trying to get my heart rate to low down because I start remembering some of those things with her help, and it
Yeah.
truly helped. I strongly encourage you look into it because I don't know how to fully explain it, but I can explain how it helped.
Yeah, and so you were demonstrating the butterfly
Hmm.
hug, and that
Yeah.
is to slow your heart rate and bring you out of a state of feeling unsafe. And
Hmm.
so, with slowing the heart rate, have you tried breath work?
Yes, that's another thing that I've learned. I didn't know there was such a thing as box breathing.
Hmm.
It still happens that sometimes I get triggered and I have to just put distance between me and people. I usually go in the bathroom or go for a walk and do box breathing. And I realized that that helps me calm my brain, my anxious brain, and calms my heart, that within 5 to 10 minutes, I'm able to just jump back to work and not having to worry about a thing, because that breathing exercise, it was completely new concept to me.
Yes. And I actually just came out with a biblical breathwork CD. And so if anyone is interested in trying breathwork, all you have to do is press play and just breathe, because when we breathe, it calms our nervous systems. It allows our bodies to feel safe, which actually then allows God's peace and presence to be able to be felt within our bodies. And so when we're going through these things, we really need to feel God's peace and presence. And so, Mia, what would you say the most significant changes have been in your life since you started therapy?
I don't have panic attacks anymore. I don't fight with an anxiety, because I know as soon as I feel like I'm getting triggered, I immediately go to my box breathing or some of the exercises she gave me. But I don't have to deal with that anymore, and used to rule my life. People used to know I work not to walk by my desk without announcing themselves, because I used to just jump and sometimes put my hands up like they're going to hit me, and people was like, "Are you okay? What's wrong?" I said, "Nothing. It's not you. It's me." But just simple things, just by walking by my desk, it used to trigger me. And what people didn't understood, like my heart was beating so fast, and I always had to like, okay. And I didn't know how to calm it down. And that could have last like next 3 to 4 hours, me fighting in trying to get back into a present space, because I didn't know, one, what was triggering them. I did not know how to deal with them. And now, if something like that happens at work, within 5 minutes, I'm able to pinpoint what happened, acknowledge it. I can pinpoint the triggers now, and then take steps into the breathing exercises, that I don't get to a panic attack. And I'm able to calm my brain without having to think about it too much.
Well, those are some significant changes,
Mhm.
going from feeling anxious and stressed out for hours down to just a few minutes, from not knowing why you're being triggered to now having a really good idea so that you can take preventative steps, from having those nightmares to now sleeping better. It sounds
Yes,
like your life has
yes.
significantly improved. And so, for anyone listening, Mia, what would you like to say as a childhood trauma survivor to encourage anyone out there who is afraid of taking the next step?
I say that here in the United States, there are so many resources that I didn't know they existed. And there is no shame into asking for help, because think of how many people you can help and how many people you can impact if you take that first step and say, you know what, I am a survivor and I'm here today because therapy. And people who know me and they're really close to me, they knew I was in a very, very dark place in 2023. And it's for the first time in my life that I said, I'm done. I'm done. I have no purpose in this world. I don't know what's the reason to keep fighting and keep trying. And through therapy, now I'm able to actually impact others by telling my story. And I'm excited now to go to bed and wake up in the morning, because before it used to terrify me to go to bed, because I didn't know what I was going to dream about. And then I
Hmm.
used to drag to get out of the bed in the morning. I didn't want to start my day. So now it's like every single day I am so excited, because I get to tell the story. I get to impact people. I got to help people who's going through hardships, and there is hope out there, but you have to take the first step. If you want to start just small with the breathing exercises, or you don't have to jump directly into get into EMDR or some different treatment. Start by doing the exercises, and I'll say give at least one chance to a therapist, because God gave them wisdom to know how to help you navigate through your hardships.
Yes, he did. And he's equipped each of us with different gifts and talents for the reason of helping one another. We all want that miraculous healing, but so often God chooses for us to heal through a journey with the help of professionals and our friends and our family by our side. So thank you so much for sharing that word of encouragement. And do you have a favorite Bible verse you'd like to share that helped you through your journey?
Even when I was in the darkest times of my life and I was drinking a lot, there was a verse that my mom always used to say to us, was Hebrews 13:5. Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. And I didn't even had the whole verse, but that is a phrase that I was constantly repeating in my mind. Even when I hit rock bottom, I said, I know God didn't left me. He never left me, and he will never forsake me. And only through his grace, I was able to um, recover, because he put the right people in my path.
Well, praise God.
Mhm.
I'm so glad that verse encouraged you, and now he has seen you through to the other side. Mia, can you tell us a little bit about your book, Buried Not Broken, and where people can find it?
So Buried Not Broken we have it on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and we have it on other sites in Europe and Australia and Canada, and we have it on Kindle and paperback and hardcover. And if you don't like to read, we also have it on Audible.
So if you want to learn more about Mia's story and her history of growing up in communist Romania and her journey to healing, pick up a copy at your favorite bookseller. Thank you so much, Mia, for being with us today and sharing your story. I know it's not always easy, the things that we've been through, but I thank you because I know that it's going to touch some listeners who are on the fence. Should I seek therapy? Is that something that I need to do, or should I just wait through prayer for healing? And God absolutely wants us healed, but sometimes we need to take a first step of faith.
Yes. Thank you so much, Julie, for having me.
This episode is brought to you by From Bud to Bloom Ministry. It is not a replacement for medical or mental health care. Please seek care from your personal care providers whenever needed. If you'd like coaching or resources, please visit ChristianNervousSystemCoach.com. And please leave a review, comment, and hit that subscribe button to share Room to Bloom with others and keep good content rolling. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, friends, live fully free in Christ.